Maddie Davison here. I am a design team member, a sparkler with the SpiegelMom Scraps, and I'm here today with a process video for you. So today I'm working on some photos of my cousin's wedding that I was in 2009, that yes, I have not scrapbooked yet. The Red Rapture sequin mix, as well as a Stampin' Up! 4x6 pad that I got years ago called Stacked with Love. And I'm using this amazing a cut file from Just Nick Studio. And so here we go. So you can see there, the first thing I did was I decided to make the big X's and O's on this cut file into shaker pockets, because why wouldn't you when you have these amazing sequins? And to do that, I just flip it over. I use the skinniest sewing tape I can find, and I just put sewing all the way around the edges of that X. So ultimately, there's no side of the X that's left without sticky. And then I use just a bit of extra packaging, usually off of thickers, because that usually gives you the most packaging. And I put it on top of where the sewing is. And then I do it again. So it's the cut file, sewing, plastic, sewing, and then what I've done there is I've actually put sewing around it again, so the plastic is down, and then I have ripped off the plastic or the sewing top so that it's actually sticky. Because this X is really skinny, I actually want the sequins to stick a little bit so that they stay in the full X. So when my page is in an album, it doesn't just sit in the bottom. And then I just use another piece of plastic and I put it over top again. So that's sticking to the sewing there. You can see I really try and make it stick so that it doesn't get lost, any of the sweetens. And you can see, because some of them are sticking there, it's super red, like the whole thing is filled up. It's sort of less a shaker pocket and more of a sequin kind of texture pocket, if you will. The O's shake, but the X's do not, and that's okay. So I have gone off camera and I've just done both of those big X's and O's in the very same way. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking this Stampin' Up! 4x6 pad, and I'm going to go through the whole thing. You saw there that it's just black and white and red. A bit of pink is the whole pad. It was one of their February Valentine's Day specials years ago, and I'm going to take all the black and whites and I'm going to back each of the X's and O's in a different black and white pattern. So that's what I'm going to do here. So the way I do that is I kind of audition a couple of the patterns to see which ones I like. I like this one. And I simply flip it over. Instead of sewing, I just use glue, liquid glue. I use Scotch Quick Dry, works really well, on the back of the cut file, and then I plop it back down on the pattern. I did the same there for the little inside of the O. And then once it's dry, and because it's quick dry, it's usually pretty quick, like literally, then I just go around with my scissors and trim off the excess to make it the shape. You can back your cut files all kinds of ways. You can trace them and cut a little bit wider. It's kind of up to you. This is the way I prefer. It takes a while, it all does, but it's so, I just love it. Like, it's just so relaxing to me. So you can see there that I've used a different black and white pattern for each of the X's and O's. So I'm like totally red, black and white on this one. And I auditioned a white background and I thought, oh, it looks good, but then this black just absolutely popped for me. And so here I am. I've got the jumping photo in that, I think that's a 2x3 size, and then I've got a couple of other smaller ones. And then I do have that picture of our bridal party there with the car in a bigger photo, but I think I like the smaller one. So you can see there I've gone off camera and I've just been playing with where to put these photos. Yeah, so they sort of stay where they are right now, you'll see. And then when I've got this sequin mix on the black, it wasn't popping enough. So I did go and back those O's as well with that stripy paper that you can see behind there that I was auditioning. And then I left that overnight and came back to it, and the black was bugging me. Like, I didn't feel like I could do enough with the background. So, because, you know, making 4 shaker pockets and, you know, backing files isn't enough for us scrapbookers. And so I ended up putting it back on white, and I've decided to put a little bit of mixed media behind it. So all I've done there is just use my pencil to mark where each of the places are, so I know where to focus my mixed media. And then I just took a little bit of the, this is the colorings called Ahoy Matey. It's like a dark black and can come out gray if you add a bit of water, and just tested a spot that I knew would be covered to just make sure the color came through. I find some of the greens, not in shimmers, but others that kind of have a green tint, and I wanted to make sure that red didn't bring out any green in this. So it worked out good. So what I did then is just, again, more plastic packaging, just extra. I put a little bit from the colorings. It is a mist, but I find when you mist, it kind of creates a bit of a spray, and I don't like that. So I did just put some on that plastic, add a little bit of water to make it a little bit runnier so I could do this packaging technique. And then you'll see here, I just smoosh. And I'm just trying to cover the area behind the X's and O's cut file, plus a little bit more. And you can see there, just to give it a little bit of, I don't know, something behind there. And then I go and I decide I need a little bit more. And you'll see there I started and then I clean off the plastic. I find when I go between smooshing it onto the paper and needing more to smoosh again, I like to clean off the plastic because then you get just that really wet look. You don't get a bunch of kind of the dry smudge, if you will. So that's what I've done there. And again, just put a little bit on the plastic, added a tiny bit of water, a spritz or two, mix it up with my brush, and then I'm going to drip it where I want it to go. So kind of where there's a big drip. And then I go back and I just smoosh that drip. Like, messy is good. As Missy Wooden would say, it's going to look like a hot mess first, and that means it's going to look good when you're done. So I try not to overthink it, which is, sometimes interesting for me. So there I am. I've added a little bit of splatters with the brush, the paintbrush there. So that's going to be a watered down splatter. And then I am going to come back in with the actual nozzle of the mister and also add some splatters. And what I like about this is that it's not watered down, so it's going to be a little bit darker. So it tends to give you kind of more tones of that same color. So you can see some is dark, some is light, and then lighter again, using just one paint. In this case, again, that's the Ahoy Nady by the Colorings. So which is matte, it has no shimmer, from Shimmer's paints, which I just love. They're definitely my go-to paint. So you can see there, it just provides something. It doesn't make that white as popped, but it kind of gives it a messy shadow. So off camera, what I did as well is I have this is the Sizzix. It's a Tim Holtz. It's called Thinlits, and it is the 17 dies. I don't even know what it's called. Just 17 dies. It's a whole bunch, as you saw there, just a bunch of florals and some botanicals. And what I did is off camera, because it takes a while on the die cut machine, I just cut a whole bunch of the dies in the different various pattern papers from the collection, focusing more on the red collections with a bit of the black and white. So you'll see that's what I've got there. So just to show you what I'm doing here, obviously I have come back in. I've decided it does need some more black, but not the black background. So cue matting the photos. So that worked out really well. And then, inspired by matting the photos, I thought that this page might also be good if the whole page was mapped. So just a little bit of black on the outside. Again, that makes that white really pop, and then we'll bring out the black and white that's in the X's and O's. So I never waste a full 12 by 12, unless it's a really flimsy paper, or I do a lot of mixed media and I want to use backing the 12 by 12 to make it flatter. So I just gut the thing. I'm sure that most people are doing this, but and then I use the insides you'll see here to mat the photos. So kind of no waste. And then I'm going to trim down this white piece just a little bit on two of the sides to make it, it's a 12 by 12, so I want to make it just smaller than that. And I kind of just eyeball this. I don't know how much I actually cut off. Probably a quarter centimeter or two, or for the non-metric system, probably like an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch, probably somewhere in there. I just want a little peek of the black, literally like as if it's matted in this case. Sometimes I go more when I have a cool pattern behind and you want to show it, and sometimes less. And in this case, I'm going less. So I like that is framed. Sort of hard to tell on that teal background there, but I think you get the gist of it. And as I like that is going to be matted in black, and then as well, I think that's going to match really nicely with my photos matted in black. And you can see there, it gives it a bit of a pop. So here I am just playing with the photos again, as we all do. Where should they go? I do settle on them eventually. You will see me stop playing with those. And then I've decided the background, it just needs a little something else, a little like stays on stamp. And I have this awesome, the Vicky Boutin set. I can't remember which collection that is from, the one that had all the moths in it. And there's these plus signs, but if you turn the stamp a little bit, they become X's, like kisses, to match the cut file. So I thought I was pretty smart. Anyway, I'm sure everyone's done that with this thing, but so there I am. So, and I'm using Stays On. I don't need Stays On technically because I'm not going to put water on the page again, but I just find it gives me such a true, brilliant black that I just reach for it every time. Even if I don't require like an archival type of ink, and I'm not going to add water. I love how rich the black is. So that's what I go for. It's my go-to black stamp. And I don't actually stamp in a lot of colors other than like black and sometimes tone on tone. Which is interesting. So there I am, and I do like how that's starting to look behind, and I just keep bringing back the cut file to see like how wide I should take the stamps out. Sorry, you can probably hear my dog chewing on her bone, her Nyla bone. It's the only way I can record as if she's in her little bed beside me, so apologies. So anyway, so there we go. So you can see I'm still not sure, like when in doubt, just stamp a little bit more. It's kind of like when you're layering and clustering embellishments and adding enamel dots, just add a little more. Because I do want it to peak. I really want it obvious that there's some added texture to that background, but not take over. And you'll see I put a little tiny bit over there on the left-hand side, just to balance, just a little bit of balance. Sometimes I like to rip the paper on the opposite side, but in this case, I love that these are little X's and they look so bright. So here I am again, yes, playing with the photos. I promise they'll find a home. I like that arrangement, but something still feels a little bit weird to me. So you'll see I come back to them, but anyway. So here I am. These are all, I just went crazy standing in the kitchen talking to my husband using the die cut machine to cut all these little bits and pieces. It is like the coolest die cuts little collection with all the different florals and the botanicals. So you'll see I just go through this pile and I end up with a whole bunch extra, so that's kind of fun. And I just go through and just start adding florals in clusters. But I started to get sidetracked, and before, what I end up doing all the time is piling on all my like clustered embellishments, and I haven't glued anything down, and then I have to start over. So I knew absolutely for sure my X's and O cut file would stay exactly where it was, so I just stopped playing with the florals for a second, and glued everything down. And I just, again, I use quick dry. If I had the guts to pick this whole thing up, because I finally found where the photos were going, I probably would have also used some suquang, just more out of habit. And I do find the shaker pockets can get a little bit heavy, and so the suquang just keeps them where they are. But quick dry will work as well. At least when I look back in my albums, it seems to work really well. So that's me. So the cut file is down. It's going to stay where it is because it's got mixed media behind it. And I'm, again, going to play with the photos. Promise I will stop eventually. And it's right here. I decide what's bugging me is that they're not straight. That is just so funny. I'm very much usually like a tilted photo person, but this cut file, it has such straight lines, like the rows of the X's and O's, that the photos to me just being straight looked so much better instantly. So that's what I did there. And you can see I'm actually taping them down now. Don't worry, you won't have to see me play with them again. Yeah, so those will be down, and then I'll get back to the fun stuff, which is, as we know, is always playing with the florals. So now that that's all glued down, I also can glue down my mat. And so how I usually do that is I put suquang on one side, get it squared up with that one side, and then I go back and either lift an edge or use the quick Scotch quick dry. And as straight as I think it is every time, it also never looks straight to me. So you can see I came in there with my big 10-inch blade scissors, which I lovingly call Eddie, short for Edward Scissorhands. For those of us old enough to remember that movie. Yeah, so that is good. I love those scissors. So, oh yes, I did pull out the Ahoy Matey again from Shimmers just to put a little bit of the watercolor touch over on the other side where I had the stamps. It just looked too clean compared to the other ones. You know, it's the little things. So here I am as well. I am going to go through the florals because I realized I needed to put the little centers on the flowers. I'm sure there's a proper name for what those are called, but that is ultimately what I am doing here. So I lay out the little thinlits there. You can see at the top. That's how many amazing florals was in here, and that's only part of them. Just so I can remember what the inside little bit was supposed to look like, so I could just dig through my little pile there and find it. Yeah, so I just go there and I do that off camera because, believe it or not, that actually took me a while. Probably not, believe it or not, because if you're like me, then you want them to look perfect. So then I go off camera, I do that, and then I come back, and this is where I literally just start to cluster. It's probably a good time as well to mention that I saw, and I will link to it below. I will mention her name below. I feel awful that I just drew a total blank. I saw this cut file being used on the Just Nick Studio Instagram and then went to the blog, and she did it white. She had these amazing colors. She did these floral clusters on it, some of them in the same places as me, with mixed media behind. And I literally closed Instagram and went and bought the cut file. I loved it that much. And I knew I wanted to use the Red Rapture sequin mix, which is that bright red sequin mix there. My cousin who's in these wedding photos, who's the bride that I was in the wedding with, her dress is stark white, except there's like an underneath of the white dress that is like bright, beautiful red, and then there's like these, I don't know what you like on the front. It's sort of, I don't know, her dress is embellished, I guess, with red, and it like, and then the rest of us are all in black, and it was just like absolutely like a Valentine's Day like theme. So I was super excited, and I have never had a chance to play with that, the paper 4x6 stack from Stamping Up that I've had in my stash for quite some time. So it just totally worked together to stick with this color scheme, and it feels so good to have these photos. And I know it's not many. I've got many from the wedding finally documented, and I'll do a flip flap kind of photo flap and journal a little bit. But yeah, it feels good to have them done. And my now husband at the time we were dating. He was actually our photographer for us. So there's just so many great memories associated with this awesome day, and they're just a great couple. So it's just great to kind of make this super lovey and X's and O's and romantic. Sorry about my head there. Yeah, so that's me. So you can see where I placed the floral clusters. Again, I was inspired by the Just Nick Studio blog and how they use this cut file. Because, well, it was absolutely fabulous. And I love that we have a community that inspires people. So there I am. I kind of put my finger in the middle of each cluster and then just slowly pick up each side to put a little of the quick dry there. For me with florals, and I'm sure it's the same for most of us, I tend to just stick down like the edge of it. So like the center of the flower, or like the stem part of the leaf, or the botanical, or and then I kind of like rough them up a little bit. And you can see I'm just going to go back with my finger and kind of pick up the edges a little bit, just to give it a little bit of dimension. I know eventually they're going to be in an album and flatten out a little bit, but I don't know, it just gives it something. So yeah, just really like that look. And for a while they don't go in an album, and I get to look at them and they have dimension, and it makes me happy. And it always looks really fabulous in the photo of the layout. So of course there's never enough sequins, even though I have those awesome shaker pockets in there. So I'm just going back through the Red Rapture mix. I don't have much left. I have filled those sequins, but I kept just enough behind to be able to use as kind of as you would enamel dots. And so I'm clustering some of the sequins around each of those florals, and I'm not kind of putting them into the white space because I want to keep the white space. So I am sort of clustering them quite tight, so that they're really part of that floral cluster, but they add some shine, and kind of spread the shine that's in those sequin pockets around the page. Yeah, so I put quite a few on there, probably a few in kind of every floral cluster, and I use a mix. There's like a dark kind of a dark red and a lighter red sequin that's quite flat, that's got some, I don't know, just looks really cool. Almost like an animal print, but it's not. I don't know how to, like holographic is probably the better way to describe it. And then there's some big darker ones, and then there's some tiny little really flat ones that are like that true red color. And so I've just used a mix. And I put my sequins down just again using quick dry. I just move them aside, make a pretty good dollop of the quick dry, and then smoosh them back down so that the quick dry kind of spreads out, sometimes comes up through the hole and a little bit out the sides, but I don't worry about it. It dries clear, and then it just makes me feel good that it's going to stay there. Like I've never seen the glue after when a layout is done, and knock on wood, I haven't gone back to my layouts or into my albums and found sequin sitting at the bottom of the page protector, which, I mean, I guess essentially that would just be a very large sequin shaker, so not all bad if anything's going to fall to the bottom. But yeah, so that's me. That's me finished off. As far as the design is concerned, I go through in my little date stamp here that I picked up at like Staples, and put our September 5th, 2009, the wedding date. I'm just putting it over there to the side. I want to reserve that spot underneath because I might put my journaling there. I might do a flap. So here are some close-ups of that design. I really love how this turns out. I'm so excited to publish this and let my cousin know, the bride, how this worked out, because it's really exciting. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to use Brandy15 as your discount code for 15% off on SpiegelMom Scraps.